I was working late on my computer, as usual, when my wife came home. She'd been out all evening at another one of her neighborhood committee meetings. She had one practically every night. But that was fine. I was busy with my own projects, and we both kept busy with our own separate hobbies. The desk we shared was piled up with papers and documents belonging to both of us. A picture of us on our wedding day sat on a shelf above the desk, displaying our young and smiling faces on a day that seemed not so long ago. My wife had left her phone on the desk, and it began to buzz and vibrate, indicating a message was coming in. Then another, and another. I glanced at the time. 9:47 p.m. Guess they're behind schedule, I think, turning back to my programming. But then the phone rings again and again. Just as I sit down to continue writing, my wife's phone starts vibrating again. She must have forgotten it in her hurry to get to work. That's unusual for her, since she never leaves anywhere without it. Another message comes in, and I glance over at the screen, trying to ignore it. But I can't help myself from reading the preview. Unknown. We need to talk about last night. You can't just... The rest of the message is cut off. I pick up the phone, thinking I'll just move it to the other side of the room so it won't distract me. For some reason, I can't help but take a look at her messages. Last night was special. You can't just disappear on me, Emily. We have to talk about it. Gulping, I read upwards. That outfit you had on. I can't get it out of my mind. Greg wants your report, but that's not why I'm texting. Come see me again tonight? At the usual? The messages were sent over the course of the last hour, becoming more and more desperate. They were from a number she didn't have saved in her phone, but it was from a local area code. I tried to imagine which one of my neighbors it could be. Who would send these messages? I put the phone back down on the table, feeling a bit frazzled. The code I was decrypting had gone to sleep while I was distracted, and I saw my reflection in the dark screen. The same face I'd always had, but different somehow, older and dumber. A car door shut outside, and I jumped. I put the phone back exactly where it had been and went back to my computer, my heart pounding in my chest as I heard the front door being opened. "Jake?" Emily calls from downstairs, her voice lilting and sing-song. "I'm home late. Meeting ran long." I hesitated, then reluctantly sat back down at the keyboard. "Up here," I said, trying to sound normal. I heard her footsteps coming up the stairs a moment later, and then she appeared at the doorway of my office. "Hey, you're not done yet? You should really take a rest." I turned to look at her. "How was the meeting?" Lisa was going on and on about the upcoming garden club stuff. She glances over and gets up to grab her phone. You know how she is. She takes a look at her notifications, but if she sees anything unusual, she doesn't show it. "You forgot your phone," I blurt out. She looked up at me, not missing a beat. "Did I? I wondered why it was so quiet in there. No emails from work?" "Greg keeping you distracted?" I asked, saying the name from the texts aloud for the first time. "Yeah," she replied, dropping the phone into her purse. "I'm gonna go take a shower. Try not to stay up too late, all right?" I nodded and turned toward my screen again. The code didn't make any sense to me anymore. I watched her reflection in the screen as she stopped up in the hallway, picked up her phone, and started typing. The water started running in the shower. I opened a new browser window and searched for Greg Mitchell, Willow Creek. Sometimes you just need to know where to look. The water was still running when I began my search. Little did I know that it would take me 3 days of sleepless nights to find what I was looking for. I printed out everything I could find and covered my desk with the papers. I opened a dozen tabs on my laptop, all with different social media accounts, business directories, and local newspapers connected to Greg. Sarah didn't notice my late nights debugging code, as I had told her, or if she did, she didn't care. She left for work in the morning just as always, drinking her coffee and kissing me goodbye, and already texting with someone before she even got in the car. But now I knew who it was, and this time it really hurt. I don't find anything, but for some reason I continue to look at Emily's phone. I type in my birth date and gain access to her phone again. This time it feels more wrong. I go to her text messages and find the contact with the name Tom. Just Tom. No heart emoji or anything like that, just Tom. I take a deep breath before I open the conversation. I can hear the sound of the shower running upstairs. I press my finger against Tom's contact and open up the conversation. "Missed you at the garden committee meeting today. Lisa wouldn't shut up about mulch. Could have used your smile to get through it," I read. I feel a knot in my stomach. The garden committee meeting. The thing she said she was going to tonight. I had a great time with you last night. I love how you giggle when I kiss the back of your ear. Dean almost caught us in the garage. The look on your face was hilarious. Will you be wearing that blue dress again tomorrow? I check the timestamps and see that there are hundreds of messages between them going back to at least a few weeks. The shower stops. I close the thread and put the phone back on the bathroom sink. Jake? She asks. Did you eat dinner? I cleared my throat and tried to sound normal. Yeah, I ate something earlier. You're working too late, babe. Don't stay up too much longer, okay? My eyes shoot open. I'm almost done, babe. I open a new terminal window and start typing random shit just to look busy. I hear Emily come up the stairs, and a moment later she's standing in the doorway. She's wearing a bathrobe and her hair is still wet. Tom and Lisa are having a barbecue, she says, standing in the doorway. I think we should go. You need to get out of the house. I kept typing, afraid my face might give me away if I looked at her. Tom and Lisa, huh? Yeah, Dean and his new girlfriend are going to be there too. It'll be fun. Delete, delete, delete. Jake, did you hear what I said? I did, I reply. That sounds awesome. She stood behind me now, holding my shoulders. It felt as if she was burning me. You seem tense, she says, massaging me. Is everything all right? I lean back into her touch, pretending to be my usual self. Just a bug I'm working on. Ever the perfectionist, she chuckles. Don't keep him up too long. She kisses me on the cheek. I can smell her hair, her shampoo, and the faint scent of perfume I don't recognize. Good night, I say to her back. After she left, I sat down at the computer and opened up the security camera app. I could go through the footage of the past month or so and see what had happened in the garage and on the driveway. I thought about what Dean had said about almost catching them. Maybe it was time to actually catch them. I could find out the truth of what had happened and see how many times they had done this behind my back. I opened the app and began to work my way back through the footage. It took a while, but eventually I got to the point where I could see the cars coming and going and began to note patterns. I created a spreadsheet and began to note things like what time the front door had opened, when the garage door had opened, what time the cars were coming and going. I began to see a pattern emerging. Emily's meetings, and when Tom's car was in our garage. My heart was pounding in my chest, but I tried to ignore it. I treated this like any other problem I was trying to solve. I had a puzzle to figure out, and I could do it. This was just another bug that I needed to squash. A message popped up on my screen, telling me about a meeting I had at work the next day. I was going to have to keep my shit together for now, I realized. I would go to work in the morning and pretend everything was normal, but tonight I would find out the truth. I continued what I was doing and began to plan my next steps. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with the information I found, but I knew it would be useful in the future, no matter what happened. And I had a feeling a lot was going to happen in the coming days. I finished up what I was doing and went back upstairs. But I wasn't done yet. I went to bed next to Emily and lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to keep my emotions in check. I wanted to scream at her and tell her I knew everything, but I held my tongue, at least for now. And as the night wore on and she fell asleep next to me, I lay awake, unable to fall asleep, counting down the hours until morning. I didn't sleep at all. By the time the sun was rising, I had laid awake for hours, listening to Emily's quiet breathing and watching her as she slept soundly beside me. I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd seen and heard, and it was impossible for me to look at her the same way. When she woke up, I went downstairs and made coffee while she got ready for work. I heard the sound of the shower running, then the hairdryer, then the clack of her shoes as she walked downstairs. She came around the corner looking beautiful and perfect, as always. You look like shit, she says, taking the mug of coffee I hand to her. Didn't sleep? Not much, I admit, feeling sick. She touches my forehead with her hand, and it takes all of my willpower to not pull away from her. You're a bit hot, she tells me, a frown on her face. Maybe you shouldn't go to work. Yeah, I probably shouldn't, I reply, taking a drink from my coffee. Don't want to spread it around the office. Emily pulled out her phone, about to send a message. I'll call Lisa and tell her I can't make it to lunch today. I can come home early? No, I interjected, maybe a bit too fast. I mean, don't cancel. I think I just need to sleep. She looks up at me, and for a second, I think I see relief in her eyes. If you say so, she says, picking up her stuff. I'll be back this evening. Enjoy work, I say, feeling sick as I say it. She kissed me on the cheek and said goodbye, leaving a faint scent of her perfume in the air. I waited until she was gone, watching from the window until her car turned the corner. Then I went into our office and locked the door. I turned on my laptop and opened the drawer where Emily kept her own computer. I opened the lid and typed in my birthday. It worked. Let's see what's in your email, I say. I keep digging and the hours go by. I find nothing in her work email other than a few normal messages to Greg and other coworkers. But in her private email, I slowly start to find stuff. Deleted emails that I managed to recover, hidden in folders she probably thought I would never find. Invitations to events from Tom, disguised as neighborhood association meetings. Restaurant reservations for 2, on nights she claimed she was going out with her friends. And pictures, which I reluctantly open. Suddenly, my phone vibrates. It's a text message from Emily. Are you all right, sweetheart? Do you need anything from the drugstore? I looked at the message, wondering if she'd sent it while spending time with Tom, laughing about me behind my back. Just lying down, I say. I'm all right. On social media, it looked like we were the perfect couple. But seeing it all at once like this, I saw all the cracks in the facade. The pictures of me and her, and in the background there was Tom. The Facebook posts she made about our dates and anniversaries, which he liked. It was all there. I had just been too oblivious to notice. There was another chime, and I saw there was a new email. The sender was a name I didn't recognize, and the subject line said, Weekend Plans. I clicked on it just as I got another text from Emily. Meeting's going long. Eat without me. I look at the clock. 2:47 p.m. If he had a meeting, it would have been over by now, I realized. How many more lies had he told me, I wondered. I opened the email. It was very short and came from an anonymous account. Same spot, rooms booked for Saturday. Looking forward to seeing you in that red dress. I save all of the proof in a folder on my computer. The emails, the pictures, the location data from her phone, all of it. Then I hear the house phone ringing. I let it go to voicemail. It's Tom. Hey, Emily, just wondering about that BBQ on Saturday. I thought we could talk through some details. Call me back. The phone buzzed again with one final text. Got a lot on my plate tonight. Helping Greg with some of the quarterly reports. I'll be home late. Love you. I read those final words over and over again, not knowing what to think. Then I hear a car door slam outside. I walk over to the window and see Tom pulling up in his driveway, his phone in his hand and a happy smile on his face. I close down the laptops and put everything back in the exact same spot I found it. I'll sleep in the guest room tonight, claiming the flu, and tomorrow I'll start coming up with a plan. But for now, I'll just sit here, in our home office, and watch the sun set on my life. It takes me another couple of hours to go to bed. I need to process everything I've just learned and come up with a plan for what to do next. It's 10:47 p.m. when I finally lay down in the guest room with my laptop. I shift uncomfortably on the guest room bed. It's late, but I'm still searching for answers on my laptop. Emily and I usually share an office, but I didn't feel like looking at the wedding pictures right now. Emily's work laptop is next to mine. She never changed the settings after adding my fingerprint to her laptop, so I can use it without her knowing. I know it's wrong, but I'm desperate. A new email pops up on her screen. It's from Greg Mitchell. Emily, here is the letter of recommendation you asked for. Your commitment to the project is appreciated. I look forward to our next one-on-one strategy meeting, Greg. The attachment showed a letter of recommendation, saying all sorts of nice things about Emily and how she had an intimate understanding of our needs as a company. My phone buzzed with a text from Dean. Yo, dude, you never came to the gym. Is everything okay? I thought about the times Tom and I worked out together, the protein shakes we shared afterwards, and the way we always said, bros before hoes, like we had some sort of brotherly bond. Then I thought about Emily again and went back to her email, not sure how to respond. In the personal folder, I found another folder called Travel Photos. It was last opened yesterday, according to the timestamp. Inside it were dozens of photos from various work conferences she had attended. Chicago, Atlanta, San Francisco. The first few images were innocuous, but then they began to get more revealing. Photos of Emily in a hotel room holding a bottle of champagne, wearing a fancy red dress. It was the one Tom had said she wore when they went out that night. But the other person in the pictures with her wasn't Tom. Jesus Christ, I mutter, seeing the face of Lisa's husband, his hands on my wife's hips. Another message. Dean, Emily said you were sick. Are you okay? She told him. Of course she did. I'm fine, I type back. Hey, quick question. Remember that conference in Chicago last month? He replies right away, asking, Yeah, it was a crazy weekend. Why? Emily told me you went too. Was it a work trip? 3 dots appear, disappear, appear again. Finally. Must be thinking of a different weekend, man. Haven't been to Chicago since college. I check the pictures again. Dean is in the background of a hotel lobby, his arm around Emily. Okay, sorry, I reply. I sit down at my computer and open up a program I wrote a few years back, which will allow me to recover the deleted emails. I run the software, and a moment later, I'm looking at Emily's deleted emails. There's a long thread of emails between her and Greg. It goes back months, and as I read, my fears are confirmed. They've been sleeping together, and it looks like she's been cheating on me with him for quite a while now. I see a new email pop up at the top of her inbox and open it up. It's from Lisa's husband, addressed to Emily. Miss our strategy sessions. Marriott next week. I checked their history. Meetings, business trips, dinners. My phone buzzed again. Emily. Are you still not feeling well, babe? I picked up some soup on my way back, but you were passed out in the guest bedroom, so I didn't want to disturb you. The time is 11:47 p.m. I didn't hear her come home. Thanks, I say. How'd it go with Greg? Late meeting. Good. Got that letter of recommendation done. He can be a little picky about the language. I read her words and can't believe how easily she lies to me. I know what I will find if I continue to dig deeper. I open the app connected to the cameras inside our house. I find footage of Dean sneaking out in the morning, of Tom visiting our house during the day while I was at work, of Greg leaving our house late at night while I was away at a conference. I get a notification that Emily received an email on her private account. I read it. It was from a lawyer. Mrs. Harris, checking in about our consultation. I've got the preliminary paperwork ready for you. Let me know if you'd like me to make any edits before we move forward. The room was starting to spin. She was going to leave me. She was planning it for a while too, sleeping in my bed, drinking my coffee in the morning, acting like she was my loving wife. All the while she was planning to leave. I continued to copy files, making sure to get the dates and times on everything, to keep track of all of it. I was treating it like a computer hack, like a breach which needed to be contained and monitored. I was going to keep track of everything. I needed to know the whole story. I had to know the truth. Another text came in from Emily. Hope you're feeling better tomorrow. Don't forget Tom and Lisa's BBQ this Saturday. Everyone's been asking about you. Everyone. I closed the laptops again. The room fell into darkness. I would begin calling people myself tomorrow. For now, I just wanted to let it all sink in. I wanted to let it all sink in before I went to sleep and let a new day begin. A car door closed outside. Steps on the front walk. Emily's key turning the lock. I remained silent in the darkness of the guest room, listening to her walking around in our home. I spent the next 3 days mostly in the guest room. I told Emily I was sick. She didn't seem to mind. I could hear her doing the dishes, taking a shower, watching the evening news. I declined everything she offered me and called in sick at work. It was a good excuse to buy some time. I needed to buy some time, to let the new reality sink in, before I could proceed with my investigation. The following morning, I woke up in what had become my home office, formerly the guest room. I had transformed it over the past few days, setting up my laptop and bringing in all of my documents, organizing them by date on the bed. I needed to keep track of everything. I had a lot of work to do in the coming days. No, weeks, years. It was 9:15 a.m. I had an appointment in 15 minutes with a divorce lawyer I had found. Her office was far enough away that I didn't need to worry about Emily finding out. I heard the shower running upstairs. Emily was getting ready for work. I grabbed the documents I needed for my meeting and put them in a briefcase. I didn't want her to know I had been going through her things, so I made sure everything was exactly as I'd found it, and went upstairs. I also left my web browser history untouched, searching for unrelated things so that it wouldn't look like anything was amiss. Jake? Emily asks from upstairs. Are you going to the office today? Nah, I say, trying to make my voice sound sick. I think I'll work from home. Okay, sweetie, I'll bring you some soup after work. I hear her approaching. I quickly push the briefcase under the bed and open a terminal window on my laptop. When she comes in through the door, she's dressed in a red dress just like the one she wore in one of the photographs. "You should see a doctor," she says, looking worried. "You've had the flu for too long." "I have a telehealth appointment tomorrow," I lie, marveling at how natural it feels to do so. "Great." She looks at her phone and types frantically. "I have a lot of meetings today, so I'll be home late." "Meeting with Greg?" I ask naively. She hesitated. "Among others. You know how it can get." A few minutes later, I heard the front door close. I waited 5 minutes, then got my briefcase and walked to my car parked 2 blocks away. It was a 15-minute drive to the offices of Walsh and Associates. I took the elevator up to the 12th floor. Mr. Harris?" says the receptionist. "Miss Walsh is ready for you." Caroline Walsh's office is neat and professional, which is a good thing for a divorce lawyer. "Take a seat," she says, pointing to a leather chair. "You said over the phone this was a private issue?" I set my briefcase on her desk. "I just want to make sure that everything we're talking about stays between us." "Okay, so lawyer-client confidentiality." "No," I cut him off, unlocking the briefcase. "I need more than that. I need to know that you won't say a word to anyone until I tell you to." She raised her eyebrows as I pulled out some papers, photos, and USB sticks. "Mr. Harris, what is this?" "Proof," I tell him, "that my wife has been cheating on me with several men, including her boss, and has been stealing from her company." She picks up one of the images, Emily and Greg at a hotel bar, his hand too high up her leg. "How long have you been collecting this stuff?" "Just 3 days, but the cases go back months, maybe even longer." She looks over some more of the papers. "This is very thorough." "I'm a coder," I say. "I debug. It's my job. I pick up on patterns. I see discrepancies. I keep notes." She picks up a notepad. "What would you like to see happen?" I leaned in closer. "I want to knock down the whole house of cards at once, but I want to make sure I'm doing it legally. The business aspect makes this tricky," she says, reading through Greg's email chains. "But it also gives us an opportunity. I don't want to blackmail anyone." "Of course," she says, "but we need to do it soon. When do you want to do it?" I showed her one more paper, the email from Emily's divorce lawyer. Before she can make her move, Caroline looked at it and said, "I see. We need to move faster than I thought. I know what to do," I say, "and when to do it. The next hour is spent going over the details of our plan, what we can and can't do, and making sure everything is documented." When I leave her office, I feel less hopeless and more determined. As I'm getting back into my car, I get a text message from Dean. "Bro, you're missing some sick workouts. You better be at the barbecue on Saturday." I begin typing a reply, but then think better of it. I add his name and number to a list of names and numbers instead. It was titled Phase 2. After that, I put everything back where I found it in the guest room, just the way it was. As I was doing so, I heard a ding, which indicated a new email had arrived on Emily's laptop. It was from Tom and was discussing plans for the weekend. I forwarded it to my own server, then marked it as unread. I heard the front door open unexpectedly, much earlier than expected. "Jake?" Emily calls up. "I got soup." I closed everything, pulled up my work terminal. "In here," I say, fake coughing. She comes in with takeout from our favorite sandwich shop, looking worried. "You're really not looking well," she says, touching my forehead. "Maybe we should cancel the BBQ this weekend." "No," I say, recalling Caroline's instructions about keeping up appearances. "I'll be better by then. We wouldn't want to let anyone down." Her phone buzzed. She looked at it and smiled. "If you're good," she says, starting to head out the door. "I have a quick work call to make." I watched her leave, and I could see her already reaching for her phone to call Mrs. Donovan. I thought about the documents in Caroline's office and figured it was best to keep my mouth shut. I only had 3 more days to wait until the BBQ. 3 more days until Phase 1. I sat down and looked at my soup, which had gone cold. I pushed it aside and returned to my computer, adding yet another line to the many lines of code I had already written. I would need them all to accomplish what I needed to accomplish. The next day, I wrote code. The day after that, I wrote more code. In fact, I wrote code for 3 days straight, and I didn't stop until it was finally time for the BBQ. I didn't need to hide in my home office anymore. I could sit in plain sight at the daily grind and watch everything unfold from there. I looked down at my watch. 9:47 a.m. Lisa always comes to get her coffee at this time on her way to work. Over the past 5 years, I've gotten to know all of my neighbors' schedules and routines. Now it was time to use that information to my advantage. I had written out an email to Greg's boss, exposing his financial misdeeds, and had it ready to send. All I had to do was click the send button, and it would be done. The bell above the door jangled, and I looked up to see Lisa coming in, talking on her phone. "Yeah, we can show it this afternoon," she says, joining the line for coffee. "The master bath will sell it." I sipped my coffee, staring at her. She didn't recognize me. The barista asked her if she wanted the usual. "Sarah, and a lemon scone, please." I timed it perfectly, standing up to throw out my cup just as she turned away from the counter. "Jake?" Her eyebrows shoot up in surprise. "I thought you were still sick. Fresh air and coffee," I smile. "Doctor's prescription." "Come sit with me for a sec. I feel like I haven't seen you in ages." I pointed to an empty table in the corner, away from anyone else. "How are you holding up with the open houses?" "Oh, you know how it is during spring market," she chuckles, taking her seat. "It's a busy season." I opened my briefcase, about to take out the envelope, and said, "And speaking of never boring, there's something I want to talk to you about." She got a message on her phone, took a quick look at it, and put it back down. "What is it? Emily told me you've been acting a little strange the last couple of days." "That's sort of what I wanted to discuss with you." I pull out a manila envelope and set it down in front of us. "I found out some stuff that I think you should be aware of." The barista brought Lisa her coffee, and when she left, Lisa ran her fingers along the edge of the envelope. "What do you want to say, Jake?" I begin. "I didn't know if I should give you this, but ultimately, I think that if it was me, I'd want to see it." She took out the pictures and showed them to her. There were images of her husband in hotel lobbies, pictures of him with Emily captured on security cameras, time-stamped for proof. It can't be. There's more," I say softly, pushing over printouts of email conversations. "The work trip to Chicago? He went with someone." She reads it, and I observe her reaction, noting the different emotions she goes through. Shock, disbelief, anger. "Does Emily know?" she asks. I didn't need to say anything. She could see it on my face. "Oh God," she says. "How long have you known?" 3 days, I admit. It's a lot to take in. She took my hand. "We need to talk about this somewhere more private." "I know you might not be ready." "No," she interrupts. "I want to hear it all, everything." I looked at my watch again. "I have an appointment downtown in an hour, but tonight, she says. "When Tom goes to his poker game, he won't be back for hours." I hesitated. "Are you sure that's appropriate?" "Jake," she says, "I just found out my whole life is a lie over a cup of coffee. I don't give a shit about manners." I nodded and took out my phone. "I'll text you when I'm leaving the office." "How about 8?" "Perfect." She picks up the proof with shaky hands. "And Jake, I appreciate you letting me know." And with that, she left. I sat back down and looked at the email I had been composing to Greg's boss. It was time to send it. I clicked send and watched the message go, thinking about the chain of events it would set into motion. On the window, behind my reflection, I saw Lisa getting into her car. She was already on the phone, calling someone else, making other plans. My own phone buzzed in my pocket around that time. It was Emily. "Don't forget we need wine for Saturday's BBQ. See you tonight. Love you." I shut my computer and put my things back in my bag. Now, all I have to do is wait for the pieces to fall into place. Thursday and Friday go by without me hearing anything about the email. I go to the store, text the group to make sure we're still on for Saturday, and remind them to bring side dishes and drinks. Emily is preoccupied with hosting the event, but I'm making sure everything is going according to my other plan. It isn't until Saturday morning that the final pieces are put in place, just in time for the get-together. On the day of the party, the weather was perfect. I made sure to set up the projector screen on the back wall of our patio, and the bright white screen caught the morning sunlight, reflecting it up at me. Emily was busy preparing snacks in the kitchen. "Hey babe, do you mind getting the ice from the garage? Tom just texted, they're going to come over early to help us set up." I patted my pocket to make sure the USB stick was still in there. "No problem." I went into the garage and got the ice from the freezer, looking once again at the camera up in the corner of the room, the one which had been watching and recording me for months. Dean's pickup truck was pulling up in the driveway as I came out. "Ah, here's the sick man. Out of bed at last?" I smile awkwardly as he gets his girlfriend, if that's what she is, out of the car. "Yeah, it's amazing what a little fresh air can do," I say, noticing his eyes glancing up at the window Emily's getting ready in. Tom and Lisa show up a few minutes later. Lisa gives me a look. Jake, I'll grab those ice bags for you, Tom says. He nodded and took the cans of beer, walking through the garage and out to the backyard. The backyard of my house. Our house. After that, it was a blur, as people started to arrive. Neighbors and friends, people I knew from work, and finally Greg showed up, bringing a nice bottle of wine. Emily mingled with everyone, wearing a blue dress. Anyone need a refill? She says, pouring more into Lisa's glass. I watch them from the corner of the room, taking notes of every interaction, every look. Dean standing at the entrance to the kitchen, Tom keeping his distance from Emily, Greg watching her closely. Let's get that slideshow going, huh? Tom asks, ever the willing neighbor. Jake said something about vintage pictures? I shook my head, trying to remain calm. Just want to wait for it to get a little darker, I said. Emily trailed off in the middle of a sentence, looking confused. Slideshow? You didn't say... I thought it would be fun, I say. A little throwback. The sun is beginning to set, and the guests are having a good time. I hold my finger close to the remote control. Lisa is standing by the entrance to the kitchen, filming with her phone. We had decided to film it, just in case. Hey, if I could get everyone to gather around, I call out. Emily and I would like to say a few words. The crowd began to shift, arranging themselves to face the screen. Emily came over and stood next to me. She was wearing the same perfume she had worn to Chicago, making me nauseous. What photos did you choose? She asks me hesitantly. Some good ones, I answer, hitting play. The first couple of slides are nothing to write home about. I explain them as they go up on the screen. This is a picture from the block party we had last summer, I say, as the photo of us all by the pool comes up. That felt like forever ago. But then the timeline changed. Surveillance images, zoomed in and enhanced. Hotel lobbies, intimate moments. I heard Emily gasp next to me. And then the next series from a few months ago, I say. Emily, you want to fill us in on the Chicago conference? More pictures began to appear. Emily and Greg at a bar. Emily with Tom in our garage. Emily letting Dean out of our house at 5 a.m. People gasped. Someone dropped a glass and it shattered. Jake, Emily says, her voice trembling. What the fuck are you doing? Reminiscing, I answer, making sure everyone can hear me. Isn't that what friends are for? Greg took a step forward, his business sense kicking in, and said, I think that's enough. Oh, we're not done yet, I say, opening up the email chains. Now, these are some interesting conversations about promotions and referrals. Great job, Greg. Lisa's cell phone camera is showing everything. The backyard in disarray, the masks of civility coming off and revealing the truth. Emily tried to grab the remote from me. Why? I ask, keeping it away from him. Isn't that what we're all about? Sharing with our neighbors? Loving community? Big happy family? Finally, he shows me the images of the other visits from the same time period. Honestly, I continue, I think we should all be grateful for how much we know about each other, about how well we know each other. The projector kept playing and people were getting up and leaving the theater as everyone began to talk in alarm. Who knows? She asks. I looked at my phone for a second, checking the time. Oh, about 10 minutes ago, Greg's CEO, their board of directors, and their business ethics committee. The backyard cleared out in a hurry after that, and I didn't need that USB stick anymore. Let's have a conversation, Emily says, as the night creeps in around us. Yeah, I reply, as our final visitors shuffle off. Let's. The drive home is quiet. I'm still trying to process what happened, replaying the images of death and destruction in my mind. We get back to our house 20 minutes later, and I take the keys from my pocket to let us inside. I turned on the slideshow and began with a few innocuous images. We stood outside in the backyard on the deck. Several neighbors gathered around. Oh, that's from last Christmas! Emily laughs, pointing at a group photo. Her voice carries that perfect hostess timbre she's perfected over years of deception. I was about to turn off the TV when I stopped myself, looking at the picture of Tom with his arm around Lisa and his gaze directed at my wife. It is, I say calmly. A lot can happen in a few months, huh? I clicked on the remote and another picture appeared. This one showed Greg and Emily in a hotel elevator. He had his hand on her lower back. The sound of a wine glass breaking came from my left. Jake, she says to me, breaking her perfect posture. What are you doing? I went to the next slide. Emily and Tom were standing in the garage, kissing. Talking about memories, I say, raising my voice so the others will hear. That's what we're doing here, isn't it? Greg tried to step in, that corporate authority of his coming out in his voice. I think that's enough. Oh no, I cut in, advancing to the next photo. You haven't seen everything yet. Take a look at this collection from the Chicago conference. The time in the corner of the screen said 2:47 a.m. It was Emily, in Dean's arms, in a hotel hallway. Jesus Christ, a voice says behind me. Emily reached for the remote. Turn it off, please. I stepped back. I haven't even opened the emails yet. You really should see them, though. The slideshow continued, now showing emails between Greg and various women offering them promotions in exchange for late-night meetings in his office. This is slander, Greg says, but he doesn't sound sure of himself. Funny you should use that word, I say, switching to the next slide. Would you rather I call it libel? That implies these papers aren't real. There are a few more moments of shuffling of feet as people try to get out of the way of the action. Lisa doesn't move, just continues to film. And did you know, I add, that we have a security camera in the garage? It's got a pretty good night mode. I've actually been meaning to check out the timestamps with everyone's whereabouts. Tom took a step back, banging into a patio chair, and the loud noise of metal scraping on concrete made a few people jump. Jake, please, Emily pleads. Don't do this. I turned to look at her. It was the first time I'd looked directly at her since I'd been up on stage. Not like what, Emily? Not in front of our friends, our neighbors, your lovers. I heard a beeping sound as someone's car alarm disarmed, the first person sneaking away. I can explain, she says, but I've already clicked to the next image. Oh, I think these explain enough, I reply, as photos of her meetups cycle through. Garden committee meetings, work retreats, work meetings. Just then, Greg's phone dinged and he checked it, his face going pale. What the fuck did you do? He shouts. I look at my watch, calmer than ever. At this very moment, your CEO is receiving a few documents regarding fund embezzlement and sexual harassment. People started walking away from the scene, desperately trying to put some distance between themselves and the disaster. Your work email, for one, I say, speaking to the dwindling audience. It's amazing what you can find in someone's work email. Dean moved past me, pulling his girlfriend along after him. He shoved my shoulder as he went by. I didn't move. You've ruined everything, Emily whispers, the mascara starting to run down her flawless cheeks. I switched off the projector, noticing the fairy lights were still on. No, Emily, I say. You did it all by yourself. I just fixed the machine. The yard was almost empty now, except for Lisa, who was still filming, Tom, who stood paralyzed by the grill, and Greg, who was typing away at his phone. We need to talk, Emily replies. I put the remote away. Yeah, let's do that. But I think Greg wants to make a phone call first. It's morning in Singapore right now. Greg looked at me, fear in his eyes, then got up and rushed to his car, leaving his wine glass on the table. Let's go in, I tell Emily. Don't need the neighbors seeing any more weird shit. She walks past me, defeated. I follow her. At the last moment, I look back at Lisa and give her a nod, confirming that she managed to record it all. The lights are still flashing in the backyard. Tomorrow, there will be a lot of questions. But right now, there's only a long silence and the sound of the front door closing behind us. It doesn't take long to walk from the backyard to the front door. Lisa puts the camera away and sneaks out the way she came, leaving us both to deal with the fallout of tonight's events. As we leave, a warm breeze follows us inside and through the living room. We stepped inside and closed the door behind us. I could still see the lights from the party outside and the abandoned wine glasses on the lawn, left behind by the departing guests. Emily stood in the entryway, looking as if she were about to scream. But before she could say a word, someone knocked on the front door. Hey, Jake, you busy? It's Steve from 2 doors down. He's got that weird thing in his voice that people do at funerals. I opened the door only slightly so that Emily wouldn't hear him. He was a bit drunk. Hell of a thing, he remarks, adjusting his stance. Hey, about the poker nights? Not now, Steve, I respond softly. I can see groups of neighbors still gathered on the street, talking in hushed voices. One of them is recording it all with her phone. Yeah, Steve says, nodding too enthusiastically. Just wanted to say, if you need anything. I heard a car door slam, then the sound of Greg's BMW peeling out of the neighborhood. More knocks came. It seemed everyone wanted to know what had happened. What about Dean? Him too? Asks Sarah from Garden Club, clutching her purse nervously. Was there anyone else? Asks Mike, who owns the rival real estate office in town. For each question, I just say yes or no, refusing to give them the juicy details. Jake, it's Lisa. She's not in the group, but is still holding her phone. Let's talk about what we should do. Tomorrow? I nodded, noticing how the other neighbors were listening intently to our conversation. My office, 9 o'clock, she says, loud enough so that everyone hears. The whispers around us grow louder. Lisa's presence here with me will only fuel their speculations. The scorned wife joining forces with the jilted husband. They're probably already thinking about what they'll be texting each other tomorrow. Emily is still standing in the hallway, but it's like she's in the room with us. Okay, let's call it a night, folks, I say to the group that's still hanging out. But Jake, Karen from the HOA board says, we really need to talk about the impact this will have on the community. Tomorrow, I interrupt her firmly. I shut the door, cutting off their voices, and turned to face Emily in the silent apartment. She began to walk towards the kitchen, and I heard the sound of a wine bottle being opened. Was it worth it? She asks without looking back. Burning down our legacy? I watched her pour. Funny you should say we. She took another gulp of wine. You should have brought this up with me in private. Did you handle the divorce proceedings privately? She stops with the glass halfway to her lips. Another car starts outside, taking another piece of our social life out into the night. How did you debug enough systems? I cut him off. You learn how to find hidden files. I began receiving text messages from all of them, one after another. The first said, we need to talk. This isn't over. The second said, whatever you think you know, you're wrong. And the third said, my lawyer will be in touch. Emily saw me looking at my phone. They'll come for you, she says. All of them. Yeah, maybe, I say, slipping the phone into my pocket. But I'm not the one who signed the corporate papers allowing special privileges in exchange for hotel meetings. She gasped, surprised that I had found those files. There's a camera in the garage? She asks a beat later, since last year, after that break-in. She chuckled dryly. All this time, observing, collecting data, just like one of your computer programs. Debug enough systems, I say, and you start to see patterns. I received a few more texts from my neighbors after that, wanting more details, but I ignored them. So now what? Emily asks, putting her empty glass on the table. I can see the last guest leaving through the window. Right, I say, standing up. I'm going to go pack. Lisa's lawyer wants me to meet with him first thing in the morning. Lisa's lawyer? She has some documentation to share. Tom was clumsy with their finances. She sits down at the table, looking more and more guilty by the second. The lights outside turned off finally. I never meant, she starts, but doesn't finish. It wasn't supposed to. Save it for the depositions, I say, cutting her off and going up the stairs. I'm sure Greg's lawyer will want to hear all about how nothing was supposed to happen. Jake? I heard her voice call up the stairs after me, and I stopped. Did any of it happen? She asks me this after 5 years of marriage. Debug enough systems, I say one last time. You learn that the hardest bugs to find are the ones that were always there. I drive through the night and find my way to the expensive hotel I reserved in advance. I spend the next 8 hours drinking whiskey and trying to sleep, dreaming of my own corrupted code and the people I had let down. When I wake up, it is Tuesday morning. The next day felt strange at first, as if nothing had happened. The sun was shining through the windows of my home office, illuminating the dust particles floating above the banker's boxes filled with my 5-year marriage. I received another text message from Dean. It was his 5th after midnight. Come on, man, let's talk this out. Bros before... I didn't even finish reading it before I blocked his number. The messages from all the other friends and family members were archived in a separate folder on my phone. Caroline Walsh's office looked the same as usual, but as I sat down on the leather chair, I realized that this meeting would be different. The judge liked your notes, she says, passing you a fat file. I've never seen someone so organized. I'm a stickler. Lisa was sitting next to me with her own pile of papers. After the last few days, we'd become unlikely allies. It's Tom's lawyer, Lisa says. He wants to have a mediation. I'm sure he does, Caroline replies, laughing. He knows what we have on him, and he wants to mitigate the damage. I received another text message. It was Emily's lawyer again. I ignored it. Greg is on administrative leave. Lisa continues, reading from her notes. Ethics committee meeting next week. And it didn't take long before the people she had relied on to keep her job safe were gone as well. Have you heard anything from Dean? Caroline asks, jotting down notes in her neat handwriting. He's trying to rebuild his training business, I say. Turns out the husbands of his clients didn't like him fucking their wives. Someone knocked on the door and Caroline's assistant came in with coffee for all three of us. Got the counteroffer from Emily's lawyer, Caroline says, flipping open a document on her tablet. They're getting nervous. I took a sip of coffee, enjoying the bitter taste of it, then asked, what are they offering? Full confession, uncontested divorce, she moves out, takes her personal effects. And in return, we're supposed to pull the corporate evidence from the ethics review. She thought for a second and said, that would save Greg's career. And so is Emily's, I say, putting my mug down. Her career, it's her whole life. She looked at me, almost sympathetically. It's a generous offer, think about it. My phone buzzed again, this time with a message from Mrs. Peterson. Hi, Jake, just making sure you're doing okay. We all miss Emily at book club. I blocked her number. What do you think? Lisa asks gently. Outside the office window, the city stretches out before me, a tapestry of secrets and lies. No, I say. The evidence remains. Caroline agrees and begins typing a response. I figured you would say that. I'll write the rejection for you. A second later, I received another text from Tom. You're ruining people's lives here, Jake. For what? A few mistakes? Lisa saw the text and frowned. They're all messaging you, aren't they? All the time. Dean's wife left him. Good, Lisa says, satisfied. Karen said Emily's been living with her sister in the city. We continue to talk about dividing up our lives. The hearing is next week, Caroline says, shutting a folder. It's all going off without a hitch. Lisa got up and started to gather her things. What do you say we have dinner tonight? Sarah is hosting some sort of support group. Sorry, man, I say. House is empty. I need to debug a system. She nods as if she understands. And maybe she does. We all have our own ways of dealing with things. I leave Caroline's office and read Emily's message one last time before archiving it. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. Can we please talk about it? The bugs have been identified. Now it's time to patch them out of my life, one contact at a time. The drive to my car is calm and peaceful. Tomorrow, I'll meet with my lawyer again. But tonight, I'll continue with my debugging and reporting. I'll be prepared for the next chapter of this story. In the car, I delete every single message from Emily. I drive home and spend the rest of the day working. I don't go to sleep until early the next morning. A moving truck drives away from our home. It's filled with my wife's belongings. She left for work this morning and hasn't come back. I just watched the last box disappear inside it. My phone pings. Lisa, all clear? I have people asking about the property. Just finished, I text back. Tell Sarah she can stop pretending to water her flowers. I look across the street and see Sarah with a watering can in her hand, spying on me. She waves awkwardly when she sees I'm looking, then goes back inside her house. The house feels empty as I walk around, looking at the places where Emily used to sit, where she used to stand. The spaces feel bigger somehow, and they don't feel as haunted. An email chimed from my laptop. I go over and see it's a company-wide memo from Greg's work. He resigned effective immediately, it says. But no mention is made of the ethics investigation, or of anything else that happened. But I can read between the lines of the message, and I know now that Greg is gone. The doorbell rang just then, and I went to answer it. It was Tom. Jake, he begins, palms held up in a gesture of peace. I know I'm the last person you want to see right now. You got that right. His smile wavers slightly. Lisa is selling the house. I thought maybe we could talk about it man to man. Like you talked to me man to man while you were fucking my wife? He sounds sincere. I look past him and see Dean's driveway is empty. His weights and equipment taken away to whatever town he moved to. We were all wrong, Tom, he says, trying to smile, but failing. The community is dying. If we could just... Goodbye, Tom. I shut the door on his protests. The phone buzzed with another text message. This one from Emily's sister. She feels bad, Jake. Maybe one day. I blocked the number, and the notification disappeared. My home office, my office, was filled with screens. I was looking at a few houses in the city, applying for jobs, and trying to figure out what to do next. Lisa texted me, Coffee? Need to talk about some stuff. Same spot, 20 minutes, I say. Then I get my keys. The cafe is crowded with people who have no idea the foundation of our little social group has just been shaken to its core. Lisa is over at a table, waving me over. She has already ordered our coffee. The divorce came through this morning, she says. Tom's not fighting it. Good. And the ethics committee called me, she says, spinning her spoon around in her coffee. They want to know if I'm going to press charges for the stolen money. I relaxed in my seat, letting her think it over. Are you? I don't know. Part of me just wants to scorch the earth. And the other part? She looked at me and let out a sigh. Part of me is tired of it. I glanced out the window and noticed a few of our neighbors were outside, averting their eyes as they went by. One woman even looked in at us from the street, her eyes wide. I'm going to sell the house, I say. She nodded. Where are we going? Somewhere in the city. Got a job at a tech company. Figured I'd start over. Nice. I think I'm going to try Seattle, West Coast, new beginnings. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I pulled it out to see another blocked number. Probably Dean trying to call me again. You know, Lisa says, for people who were so used to keeping up appearances, they sure didn't stand up to scrutiny very well. That's the thing with bugs, I say, sipping my coffee. When you uncover one, you usually have to start from scratch. We said our goodbyes outside the cafe, our initial camaraderie transforming into a genuine connection. No lies, no role-playing, just mutual understanding. When I returned home, I stood in the empty living room where Emily had once orchestrated her elaborate charade. The walls were bare, save for the faded outlines of the photographs that had once adorned them. An email notification appeared on my laptop, an offer on the house. It was more than I had anticipated. The buyer's name was listed as a young couple, eager to start their lives in a new neighborhood. I considered leaving them a note explaining the twisted game of deception that had unfolded here, but I decided against it. Instead, I accepted the offer and sent the necessary paperwork, disclosing only the structural issues that needed to be addressed. As I watched the sun set over Willow Creek, I felt a sense of closure. Tomorrow, I would finalize the sale, pack my belongings, and leave this place behind. A fresh start, free from the web of lies that had ensnared me. But before I did, I opened my laptop one last time. I had one final message to write. Debug report. System review complete. Major faults detected and quarantined.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick! What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their IN. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.